Hi, my name is Leo Hand. I've been a football coach for 42 years. I started coaching in upstate New York. I've also coached in California. I've coached in New Mexico. And the past 10 years I've been a coach in the state of Texas. I've coached as a defensive coordinator at 4 and 5A schools. And today I'm here to talk to you about the double eagle, double flex defense, which is kind of an unusual type of defense. And I think there's some information here that may be of value to all coaches. A lot of the things that we do out of the double eagle, double flex defense is based on the military tactics of a Chiricahua warrior who was born in the 1820s and died in 1909. His name was Geronimo. And I'm told, I'm not sure, but I've been told that a lot of the military tactics that Geronimo used are taught in different colleges across the country that teach military tactics. Now, what's interesting about Geronimo was that when he surrendered with 34 renegades, and it took 5,000 of the United States cavalry to get him to surrender, plus it took 1,000 of civilian militia, and it also took 1,000 Mexican militia and 500 Chiricahua scouts to get Geronimo to surrender. So he had a lot of things that I think that are applicable to football. First off, Geronimo was a master of surprise and confusion. This was evident, in the way he was constantly able to avoid his enemies. Now, we do the same thing with the double eagle, double flex. We're constantly trying to surprise, we're constantly trying to confuse our opponents. Second thing, he remained elusive and never stayed in one place long enough to be pinned down by his enemies. We shift and we stem our defense so that we're not sitting there enabling superior opponents to line up, wind up, and defeat us. Third, he possessed uncommon courage combined with common sense. This is things that all coaches try to do. Unfortunately, a lot of times when we're pressed, we start to lose our courage, and this is one thing we try not to do. I always see teams on television where they get ahead and they're trying to sit on their lead, and we try not to do that. We try to remain courageous. Next thing, he was mentally and physically tougher than his enemies. Chiricahua lived close to the land. They lived off the land. They had very inadequate diet. They had very inadequate shelter. He was tough. We try to make our players tougher, and I think that you can do this. A lot of coaches say that it's, our kids are softer, which they are. They play a lot of video games, and they text, and they do these kinds of things, but they don't go outside and play ball like they used to. We try to make our players tougher by our off-season conditioning and our in-season conditioning. This is something that we really strive at, and I think we've been very successful at this. Next, Geronimo was an exceptionally fierce fighter, which is something that we also try to get our players to do, is to play from snap to whistle with total intensity. Next, he led by example. All of our coaches tried to lead by example. We tried to not only talk the talk, but also walk the walk. Next, he had it says on the PowerPoint here that he had an archaic language. I'm not sure what archaic means, but he had a language that was different from the United States and a language that was different from the Mexicans. In this tape, we're going to show a different type of language that not only is difficult for our opponents to understand, but also expedites the process of communication. And the last thing that Geronimo had that's not on the PowerPoint is he was very spiritual. And I think this game, when we can get 22 players or 33 or how many are on a football team to understand that they've got to, this game is a little bit above them, that they've got to play as a team, that they've got to sacrifice for one another, they've got to dedicate themselves to other players, they've got to overcome their comfort zone, and they've got to get out there. This is something that I think if we don't realize that this game has some spiritual elements, I think we're all missing the boat. The double eagle, double flex that we run at the high schools that I've been coaching at is nothing that we can take credit for. It's stuff that we stole from a lot of different people. My first opportunity to coach in Texas, I was hired by a man by the name of Howard Wells. And Howard Wells asked me what I wanted to coach as far as defense. It was a very unusual interview. And what I did is I got up on the board and I drew a lot of things with a four-man front, with the disguise and coverages and all kinds of things. And at the end, he said, well, that's what I want to run too. And I says, great, let's do it. But when our players showed up, we realized, because we were all new at this school, we all realized that we couldn't do that. We had to change. But we did stick to our plan in the beginning. Unfortunately, it wasn't working out real well, and we had to make a change. Howard brought me into the office, and he says, I'd like to run the Desert Swarm, which the University of Arizona was running very successfully at that time. And I said, great, okay, what is the Desert Swarm? Well, Howard really didn't know a whole lot about it. He did draw up some things on the board. He kind of had a basic concept of the Desert Swarm, and he said, this is what I'd like to run. And basically, it looked like a split six on one side and a weak eagle on the other side. And we tried to run it, but as the season ended, we realized we needed a whole lot more information about this defense. Fortunately, there was a man by the name of Bob Brown who was the defensive coordinator at UTEP at the time, and Howard had coached with him at the University of New Mexico. So he came down to our school at El Paso High, and he went through the basics of this defense. And again, it went through another evolution, because in 2003, Rick Ellerson, the coach of Cal Poly, came down to play UTEP at the Sun Bowl. And at that time, Cal Poly was a 1AA school and UTEP was a Division I school. And it seemed as though it was going to be kind of a one-sided deal. And what happened was Cal Poly beat UTEP in that game by the score of 34-13. And I realized at that time that there was a whole new bag of tricks in the double eagle, double flex, than there was in just the weak eagle defense. So this is kind of how it's evolved. And what I'd like to do now is show some PowerPoints as far as the process of the evolution and how we've arrived at the point that we're at. Okay, we're going to start with the Bear 46. Not that the 46 had anything to do with the evolution of this defense per se, because the defense originally came from Canada. It was originally a 12-man defense, which Dick Tomey at the University of Arizona and his defensive coordinator Larry McDuff and Rick Ellerson had a great deal to do with the evolution of this defense. But I pointed out for one reason. The strong safety was put to the weak side. This was a cover one defense, a man-to-man defense, and the Mike linebacker was over to the strong side. He was the best linebacker. Now, the only reason I point this out is because this has a lot to do with our adaptation of the defense. Also, over to the tight end side here, we see that this linebacker here was responsible for covering the tight end in most instances. The outside backer here was usually a rush end. So basically this caused the Mike linebacker to be a D-gap player. And we changed that greatly. Well, they had done that already at the University of Arizona. Okay, next we see the original Desert Swarm as we were taught it at El Paso High School. At that time, again, we had the whip linebacker to the weak side of the formation, which made a lot of sense, okay, because this is where we needed a great linebacker. And we had the adjuster, the rover, who would be the adjuster against ace-back formations to the strong side. We also had our stud linebacker, who's kind of a tweener between a DB and an actual linebacker, covering the tight end, but he'd also have to walk away against ace-back formations that required or featured four wide outs. Okay, the original double eagle flex, okay, the responsibilities were very simple, okay. The two linebackers here, whip and rover, were responsible for outside containment. They had no inside gap responsibilities. The tackle here was a B-gap player. The nose shaded to one side, okay, which would be to the weak side, towards Mike. Now, Mike was a flex player who sometimes stunted, but against pass would drop into the hole over here. When flow went strong, the weak side end would trail along looking for counter, bootleg, or reverse, and then he would go into cutback mode. The strong end, okay, played what we call a 7 technique, and he was strong enough and big enough to play versus the tight end. The stud would come in here and secure the D gap tight to the strong end, and the whip would be the contained player. The free safety was the alley player. Now, we also had a field corner and a boundary corner. The boundary corner would be, was originally, as we were taught, was a jam player who would funnel everything into the free safety. I eventually didn't like that because anytime the free safety bit on a running play, a play action pass, okay, this would leave this man alone with this receiver into the middle of the field. I didn't like that at all. So we changed his responsibilities quite a bit. Field corner is our best cover guy. He was alone on an island and it was understood that this was our best guy. Now, not always did he align towards the wide side of the field. Sometimes we'd put him against, and most time we'd put him against, their best receiver. When flow went to the weak side, full flow went to the weak side, Rover again had contained. He would have C gap responsibility, B gap responsibility, weak side A. Okay, this gap would usually, this strong side A gap would usually disappear because this guy would usually, the guard would usually fold inside somehow. So he was a B gap player, and when the play went to this side, he would end up securing the strong side A gap. Now, the strong side end would have basically the same responsibilities as the weak side end did when flow went the other way. He would trail along the play after he had secured this C gap, and after he was certain that there was no threat of a counter, bootleg, or reverse. And so he would trail along looking for cutback. The stud was still responsible 100% for covering this tight end until he was certain that the play was in fact a run. The free safety would be an alley player. Now, these are some of the things that we did because we realized right off the bat that we needed a 5-man pass rush. So we had a couple of different maneuvers that we did with Mike that would enable us to get this 5-man pass rush. So no longer do we have a 4-man pass rush with Mike dropping into the hole. Okay? What we basically had here was we still had weak side A gap with the nose. Okay, we still had the end playing the same responsibilities against pass. Whip was still responsible for the near halfback, and Rover was responsible for the strong side halfback. Now, this was one little maneuver that we put in on our own, and this we called this Tay. And this, we're going to talk about a language in this presentation that enables us to use 5 or 6 different sophisticated maneuvers in one call and to get the call in very quickly. Tay just meant that the tackle would go into the strong side A gap and the strong side end would attack the near shoulder right here. Now, unfortunately, this left Rover in a situation where he was B gap and no longer was he the contained player. But we only did this when we were in a 2-back situation. We never did this against an ace-back situation. We never did it when we needed Rover to be the contained player. Now, this was our first stunt that we put in with Mike. We just called this Mo. I don't know why we called it Mo. We've been calling it Mo since the first day we put it in. I guess because we said Mike was going to go through the outside shoulder of the guard, so we called it Mo. Eventually, we developed a more sophisticated method of calling our maneuvers with the front 5. When we had a cross between Mike and the weak side end, we called this Me, Mike and end. And this gave us a little bit of a variety here as far as confusing blocking assignments. When we wanted to blitz Mike into the strong side, which would give us a a better pass rush to this side here, we call this Mex because it was a cross, okay? So we call this Mex. And this was another stunt that we put in on our own this first year that we had this defense. Second year we had the defense. Now, we also put in tag because we felt that the stud should be able to come off to the strong side. We should be able to get a good pass rush out of him. And at that time, we did have an end who was able to cover the tight end. Now, obviously, this was off. We had to check out of this. Anytime that they had a tight end removed, they were in a 4-wide or a 3-wide situation, we couldn't run tag anymore. But this was something that we were able to do because of our personnel to lock him on there. Kind of similar to what the Chicago Bears were doing with their defense. One of the things that I thought was kind of unique was that we developed right off the bat a staggered alignment between the free safety and the whip linebacker. And by this I mean anytime you're facing an ace-back formation, you've got to defend against the speed option. And by staggering these guys, if they were to come to the weak side, we had whip scraping off, playing the pitch player, we had the end playing the quarterback, and we were fine. Now we had the alley player with the free safety. And we felt that we had a good enough athlete with the free safety to come up, okay, and to take the pitch when they came to the strong side, and now we would have the whip linebacker coming as the alley player. We didn't at that time see a whole lot of 4 wides like you do nowadays. Basically, we saw a lot of under center, okay, this type of thing which we call ace. I'd like to spend a little time here talking about pre-snap communication that occurs on the football field. High school, you find very little communication on many high school programs. The higher up you go, if you get on the NFL sidelines during a game, you're going to hear constant chatter among the players talking about different things. Watch out for this, look out for that. And also as far as identifying formations and possible consequences and plays that will result from those formations. Okay, this system of identifying alignments and gap responsibilities, pretty universal among coaches, but I do want to go over it so that we are on the same page because there is no universal system of nomenclature for all of football. A 0 technique is head up with the center. Inside shade of the guard is a 1 technique, head up with the guard is a 2, and outside shade is a 3. Head up with the tackle would be a 4, outside shade would be a 5. Now we don't have an inside shade, we don't need it in our scheme or our evolution of this defense, but if we did, we would call it 4-eye, like what most people call it. Inside shade of the tight end would be a 7 technique, 6 technique would be head up with the tight end, and the 9 technique would be outside shade. The gaps would be lettered A, B, C, and D, which I think is pretty much universal for most coaches. Now, we talk about personnel grouping for a number of reasons. One is substitution. If we're playing a 4-wide team, we may have a different stud linebacker, okay, who's going to cover one of the wideouts as opposed to the type of linebacker that's going to cover a tight end. So this is something for the coaches, 21 personnel. Now the players don't really have to do too much of that except for substitution if we need to substitute a player who's more adroit at covering a wide receiver than our normal stud linebacker. 21 personnel is, again, mainly for the coaches on the sidelines to make sure that we have the correct personnel on the field. If we have a strong stud linebacker playing against this tight end over here, then we would have to change maybe if we had four wideouts, because he'd have to walk off and cover a receiver in space, and he may not be able to do that, as opposed to a DB type guy who'd have to try to play and jam a tight end who may not be able to do that. But as our opponents come to the line of scrimmage, we're going to get some talk, and the talk's going to involve down at the bottom here. Okay, we start with the number of backs in the backfield. There's 2 backs in the backfield, okay? And there's 1 tight end. So we call this 21, okay? Because we have 2 backs, 1 tight end. Okay, the stud is going to call out tight end left because he's going to go over there. The linebackers are going to call two backs and split, okay? Now, to us, this is the DBs will call out 21 because we have two wide receivers, or two receivers over here and one over here. Okay, again, we got 21 personnel, but we got an I formation here. Now, the DBs would call out 12 because we got one receiver, and we're reading this like a book, one receiver to the left and two to the right. Now, the tight end called by the stud would be tight end right, and the two linebackers would be talking about I-backs. Now, the reason we have this is because next on the field we'd be talking about watch out for this, watch out for that, watch out for whatever, based upon our scouting report and the tendency of our opponent. Again, we have 21 personnel. Again, we have 21 because we got two receivers to this side, okay, and one over here. We have two backs and one tight end. That's why it's 21 personnel. Our stud would call tight end right. Our linebackers would call backs right or left. Now, we would be talking about things as far as what to look for over here. For example, it may be power, it may be sweep. Over here, we'd be thinking probably counter tray. And they'd be talking about that based, again, upon the scouting report and also just the strengths of their formations and the weaknesses and things that people normally do with that. Next, we would have, again, 21 personnel, but it would be with twin formation with our tight end over here, so it would be 1 and 2. It would be 12. That's what our DBs would call out. Our stud would call out tight end left. Our linebackers would call backs left. And again, we'd probably be talking about counter tray over here. We'd probably be talking about sweep, power, off tackle, ISO, etc. over to this side. And probably over here we'd be thinking about a quick trap here with the fullback. Okay, next we get into 20 personnel. That means we have no tight ends, okay? We have still two running backs, but we have no tight ends. Okay, our DBs would call out 12. We have one receiver over here. We have two over here. 1 and 2, 12. Stud would call zebra because there's no tight end. Zebras means zero, none. Okay, so that's what he would call out. Our linebackers would call I-backs, and they would talk about the different things that they might see depending on what kind of offense that they ran out of the I. Next, we have 11 personnel. We have one running back, okay, one tight end, 11, okay. Now, our DBs would call out 22 because we have two eligible receivers over here, and over onto this side, we have two eligible receivers, okay. Stud would call tight end left, okay, and we'd call ace back. And then we'd carry on some sort of conversation as far as what their tendency might be with this. DBs would probably be talking about bubble or jailbreak. Over here, we'd be talking about whatever thing they run, whether they run the option or whether they run counter tray or zone or stretch or whatever it might be. 10 personnel means that we got one running back, but we've got no tight ends. Okay? DBs would call it 22. Stud would call zebra because, again, there are no tight ends. And then we would call I-backs with the pistol. Now, pistol makes it a little bit easier in one respect for us because now when we stagger our free safety and our whip linebacker, we can always put our free safety to the wide side of the field and we could put the whip into the boundary because the ball is in the middle of the field approximately 20% of the time, and 80% of the time it's on the hash. So we do have a wide side, short side situation in most instances. Okay, again, we have 10 personnel. We have two running backs, okay? We have 3 wide receivers over here, so the call would be 31. Okay, zebra would be the call by the stud. Stud would have to walk out and cover one of these guys. Rover would have to walk out and cover one of these guys. Linebackers would call gun left. Now, this alerts us that probably the thing we really need to concern ourselves with is speed option over to this side, maybe some leads, okay, maybe a quarterback sweep over here, maybe a quick pitch to this running back. Over to this side, we're thinking a lot of counter tray here to the ace back, and if they have a running quarterback, we may even see counter tray again over to this side. And that's the thing that our players get very used to, being very vocal, talking to one another. Watch out for this, watch out for that. This is very, very important. And again, if you've been on the sideline of a professional football game, you hear constant chatter. Now, we've got an 11 situation. We've got one tight end, 3 wide outs over here. So the call is 13, 1 and 3. Okay, our tight end is to the left. The stud would call that and adjust over here. Okay, now we would call gun right because we've got the gun over here. And again, we'd be talking about the tendencies in the running game. They'd be talking about the tendencies over here in the passing game. We've got a situation where they got a good jailbreak situation, a good bubble situation. They got some pick situations, and we'd need to be talking about that constantly before the snap. Now, we go to 10 personnel if both of these players, these slots here, are in fact running backs. If they're not running backs, if one of them was a tight end, then the call would change. Okay, but if they were both running backs, and we see this formation quite a bit because a lot of people are running this ham bone or option offenses and so forth. So this is something that we would call out here. This is 22. We got two receivers over here, two over here. We got a zebra situation because there's no tight end. Okay, we got an ace-back situation. And we'd be talking a lot of different things. We'll talk about how to defend this formation and what to be looking for later on in the series. Okay, now if we've got two tight ends that are truly tight ends, and we got an ace-back situation, we again got 22, okay? This is 12 personnel, one running back, two tight ends. Okay, to be double tight, stud's got to alert that because now our rover's got to adjust to the side opposite the tight end, and we would call ace back. Okay, this is what we have adapted or adjusted to, okay, as far as our pass responsibilities for the double flex defense. Now again, we've taken Mike and we've flexed him back here. We've taken our Ted flex guy, and we've also flexed him. Now, as you're going to see in the game films, these guys, and also the teaching films, these guys are going to stem up, they're going to stem back, they're going to do all kinds of things here so that these offensive linemen are not able to determine exactly where they're going to be when the ball is snapped. Kind of like Geronimo as far as surprise and confusion. That's what we're trying to create. We're going to take our nose and we're going to put him head up with the center as opposed to shading one side or another. Although we do have the capacity to shade to one side or the other. This is especially important or especially valuable against a spread offense because one of the things that a spread offense, especially shotgun situation, where the center's got to hike the ball between his legs, we can pin his hike arm to make him very ineffective blocker. So sometimes we will shade towards his hike arm. And this is one of the things that I like a lot about playing him head up. Also, it makes it more difficult for the center to ascertain exactly where he's going to be after the ball is snapped. Other than that, we're very similar to what we were with the double eagle, okay? The weak eagle, okay? It's just now we've got this double flex. We've also moved our rover to the weak side, kind of like the Chicago Bears. He's our adjuster. Our best linebacker, our whip linebacker, is towards the strong side. And if it were a shotgun situation, we would have him towards the ace back. If it was a pistol situation, again, we'd go back to the boundary and we put the free safety in the stagger situation. Okay, we've kept with the concept of the field corner and the boundary corner, except now we're not trying to funnel in to the inside. Because too often, as we pointed out earlier, okay, on a play action pass, he bites, he becomes the alley player, and this guy's got the whole middle of the field by himself. We don't want that to happen. These are our responsibilities, okay? Our responsibilities are very similar to the double eagle. We have the same exact thing with strong flow, man-to-man coverage, man-to-man coverage. Once he realizes we get a down block or he's blocked by this tight end here, he's going to help secure this D gap, but he's ultimately, the whip linebacker is ultimately responsible for containment. We'll get a shuffle down the line with our rover, okay, and basically he's looking for cutback, he's looking for that. Our weak side end is going to look for counter, reverse, bootleg, and then he's going to pursue. We got both our Mike and our Ted linebackers. They are both responsible for B gap. Our nose is responsible for A gap. We're going to play a crush technique, and we'll see that on the field. His job is to crush the center backwards, okay, and then react to the run. It just kind of reverses when we go to the weak side. Okay, stud is still responsible for the end. We've got the trail technique by the strong end. We've got the B gap responsibility here by Ted. Nose is going to play the play side gap. We've got B gap with Mike. We've got secure the C gap, ultimate containment with Rover. Okay, shuffle, shuffle, downhill. Okay, inside out, looking for cutback, and we got the alley player with free safety. Now, we're going to start with some of the basic maneuvers, and this has to do with the nomenclature that makes this kind of defense very significant. I told earlier that we had a way of expediting calls into the huddle, not only expediting the calls, but also by combining sounds, phonetic sounds, to create words that are unique to this defense. This is mo or toe. Okay, and again, Mike is going through the outside shoulder of the offensive guard. B gap responsibilities. We'll go over the actual techniques on the field later in another film. We've got Ted doing the same thing, rip into the heel line, going back here. And it should be noted here that our ends, our nose, are Mike and Ted. We call these guys five in the trenches. And we're going to attack the line of scrimmage, try to establish a new line of scrimmage, but we're not going to go any deeper than the heel line, because if we start going upfield too far, we're going to start creating funnels. Now, obviously, if a guy can make a play, get into the backfield to make the play, he's going to do it. But as far as pursuit, we get great pursuit if we get to the heel line and then are able to pursue right or left or back to the quarterback, whatever the play might be. So this is mo and toe. Now, this is me and T. This is a cross between, and it goes back to the same thing we had before, just me. But now we've added T. Now, we've got different alignments, and we can line up the end here in a 5 technique if we want to do that. Normally, we don't do that. We can even line them up in the 4 for that matter. We just kind of scoot them down. As the quarterback gets under center, his hands start to get warm, or we get one of these shotgun guys lifts his leg, we know that he's got to be in a position so he can come down and attack the near shoulder of this offensive guard. Ted's going to scrape to the outside through the outside shoulder of this offensive tackle, and he is responsible for this C gap. We've got the same situation over here. Now again, we can go mo T, we can go toe me, we can go me T, we can go mo toe. So already we've created about 4 or 5 calls here just by the phonetic thing. And that's all we got to do as far as calling plays into the huddle. This is Tay. This means that the Ted linebacker is probably going to stem to the line of scrimmage, and he's going to come in here and attack the near shoulder of the center, and he's responsible for this A gap. Okay, nose is going to slant in here to the near shoulder of the guard, and he's responsible for this A gap. Now our end is going to come down real hard, and he's going to attack this outside shoulder of this tackle. May is a call that we use against a 2-back team in some instances, but we won't do it against an A-back, because if we've got the rover removed from the formation, and incidentally, anytime we get an ace-back formation, Ted and the strong end are going to go over towards where the ace-back is aligned. And if we get a pistol situation, they'll go to the wherever side that Whip aligns them at, which would beat into the boundary, and we'd have the free safety over to the wide side of the field. You can see we've given up the B gap, so we don't want to do this against an ace-back team, but this is May, and it's just the opposite of Tay. Nat is something that we use quite a bit, and you'll see on the game film here. Okay, Ted is going to come down real tough here. Okay, almost head up with the guard, but not quite. And he's going to come down and attack near shoulder of the center. Nose is going to step around. We'll show you the technique on the field here. Step around and rip through the outside shoulder of this guard. Okay, Nam is a situation to the opposite side. It's just the same thing, except Mike and the nose are going to go this way. Now, think about it. We've got Nam to this side. Over here we can have toe, okay? We can have T, okay? Obviously we couldn't have net. So we've widened our ability to call different things. Ted is something we can always call, okay? Because we're always going to have the whip to this side, okay? I'm sorry, not Ted, Tex. And in Tex, Ted is just stunting through this weak side A gap, okay, and we're crossing here. We call it Tex because we got an X. We got a cross, so that's what we call it, okay? Now, we call Tex over here. We could have Mo-Tex, okay? We could have Me-Tex. Okay, Max is something, again, that we wouldn't call against an ace-back formation unless it was a passing situation and we wanted to get a real fortified pass rush to this side. Okay, and also something that we might be able to screw up man blocking assignments. But this is just the opposite of Tex. Again, we could have T-Mex, okay? We could have Toe-Mex. Okay, this is Tax. This is a little bit wider, a little bit more significant or a little bit more extreme than Tex. And this is a situation here we can call anytime. And like Tex, okay, the end will attack the near shoulder, the offensive tackle. We're going to loop all the way over to the B gap. We're going to come in here just like we did with May. We're going to attack the near shoulder of the center. Here, we're going to attack the near shoulder of the guard. And these two players are responsible for securing the A gap. Okay. Max, again, would be something we wouldn't call against an ace-back formation because we're leaving the B gap unguarded. But it is something that we might do against an ace-back formation, shotgun formation, in a passing situation if we had a guy with some real quicks and some guys that really could slash through here real hard. But this is Max. We wouldn't combine Max or Tax with something else because those are kind of by themselves. Okay, Mel and Tell are situations where we are taking our whip linebacker and making him a B-gap player. We do Mel and Tell a lot, okay, when we're going to blitz one of those linebackers through here. Obviously, we would never do Mel against an ace-back formation unless we were keeping Rover in the box and we were going to blitz him. And that'd be a cover 6 situation. We'll go over that later on in another film. Right here, when we go Tell, we're attacking the near shoulder and we're coming all the way around here. Now that means that, again, he's a 2-gap player and our whip is responsible for this B gap. He may be blitzing through this B gap. When we blitz him through this B gap, in conjunction with this Tell stunt, we call that wolf. When we do it over here, and we might do it even against an ace-back formation, if we were going to adjust with our stud and our free safety, which would be cover 6 to us, okay, then we would go through here and we call that rat because R is the sound or the letter used to blitz the rover. Okay, nut is a stunt in which we go all the way around the horn. You might ask, why so much of this twist in here? It gives us this element of confusion, this element of surprise. It enables lesser players to dominate bigger, stronger players in here. Okay, and also my first year in college, I had the opportunity to play for a great coach, George Perlis, who became the defense coordinator for the Steelers and eventually the head coach at Michigan State. And he did a lot of these twisting, and it had a big impression on me. Not so much when I played for him because he didn't do that. That was his first year of coaching. But we do a lot of twisting here, and it gives us a distinct advantage, which you'll see on the film, okay? On the film, you'll see this player here, for example, who was a converted DB who had a bad knee. He wasn't a defensive lineman, wasn't even a linebacker type. He was really more of a DB, but he had great quicks and he had good strength and he could do all kinds of good things for us. And you'll see it on the film when we go through it. Okay, but this is where the nose goes all the way around here and we're coming down here, okay, attacking the near shoulders. Over here, we could go with Mo Nut, we could go with Me Nut, okay? We wouldn't go with Nam or anything else. When we go to this side, it's Numb. It's numb because we're doing it with M. Nut, see, we're doing it with a T sound. Here we're doing it with an M sound. So we're attacking the shoulder. It's just the opposite of nut. Okay, when we blitz linebackers, and I'm just, again, we're going through an overview of this whole defense. when we blitz linebackers, if we blitz them all the way across, remember we called this Tex, okay, when we did it with Ted. When we do it with Whip, we call it Wex. If we go into the A gap, it's Wham. If we go into the B gap, it's Web. If we go into the C gap, it's Whack. If we go wide out here into the D gap, it's Wide. We give the same sounds to Rover. Okay, if we want to go all the way across, remember it was Mex, now it's Rex. Into the A gap, Ram, into the B gap, Reb, into the C gap, Rack, into the wide or the D gap, Ride. We also send off the edge in addition to tag, which we still use considerably. Okay, if we're going to send them off the outside, we just add so to this. We would only use this with zero coverage, and we'll talk about that in another film. When we want to go inside, we go C. So is stud to the outside. C really is just, you know, my IQ of 46 saying that he should go into this gap here. We do blitz our free safety quite a bit, okay? And we'll be in some sort of a zero coverage when we do this, okay? Which is, for us would be cover 6. And if we want to blitz him in, we're only going to blitz him into 2 gaps. If we want to blitz him into the strong side A gap, we call it plus, okay? Fire plus. If we want to go into the weak side A gap, we call it minus. Now, one of the things that I know about football is it's pretty easy to confuse these guys up front with your alignment. So we have a number of different things that are really not that significant to our defense where we just kind of change where they're lining up. If we want to have a little weak side stack here between Mike and the nose, okay, we call it WAP because we're in the gap here to the weak side. Over here, everything is the same. Now, obviously, we can do all kinds of stunts to this side. Okay, if we want to go our base defense, which is Moto, he would just come and attack the center, and he'd just go here, and we just play Moto the way we normally play it. Now, if we want to go to the strong side gap, we'd call it SAP. And basically, it doesn't change anything on the field if that's all we want to do. And we'll stem like that because, again, we want to have the same kind of military tactics as Geronimo did. We want to cause confusion. We want to stem. We want to get the advantage of allowing our smaller, quicker players to get off that ball and attack the line of scrimmage and reestablish a new line of scrimmage. Tom would be a very simple situation where we call Ted in the middle. That's why we call it Tom. Okay, Ted in the middle, T and M. Okay. Now again, if we want to play our base defense, and now when we do this, we put Mo down. Now we'll probably stand him up, but he's going to be in a tight alignment. We're not going to flex him back at all. Okay. So he's going to be in a head-up alignment in whatever we're going to do, whether we're going to do me, whether we're going to do Mo, we could do Mo-toe. Okay, there's a number of different things we can do. We can do Nat, okay, which means that he would go here and he would blitz through here. Mo-Nat, me-Nat, whatever we're going to do. Now, Mom means that Mike's going to be in the middle. Same kind of defense, we just switched. Now again, we're going to stem very quickly up at the line of scrimmage to cause this confusion. We're going to do this when the quarterback gets his hands warm, or we're going to do this when he starts to lift his leg, and we know that's probably when he's going to hike the ball because a lot of shotgun teams have the tendency to do that. Stealer. Stealer is one of the finest things. I know George Perlis did something like this when he was with the Pittsburgh Steelers. And basically what we're doing, and we do this a lot against two-back teams, but especially against ace-back teams. Now we're giving Mike a free ride to go wherever he wants to go. If Mike is not the quicker player, then we'd put Mike over here and the nose over here, and we put Ted in the middle. But he is able to fill whichever gap, whichever flow goes. But basically, we're both lining up toe-to-toe, and we're attacking this center. That not only pins his hike arm, but we're attacking him and we're knocking him back. We started using this. We used to have guys hiking the ball all over the place, fumbles, all kinds of great situations happen with Steeler. I love this defense. Okay, over, we're just shifting over. We're just shifting Ted right into the B gap and Mike over here. We're going to play our nose exactly here. So we might do this. We might line up in Mom. We might line up in our regular defense and just stem very quickly. But this is over. Under is just the opposite over. Now we're going to the split end side. We may want to have additional help over here because we're getting hurt over here. Let's say they're a team that's got weak backs a lot and they're running sweeps over here or powers over here. This might be something we want to get in. It might not, but it might be just something we want to get in a passing situation to change their assignments. Okay, not is something where we're actually going to shade this guy. Okay, we're going to shade our nose just like we used to do it when we were playing the double eagle. Okay, and basically what we're doing is shade. We're going to make sure he's in the flex. He can flex up and down wherever he wants to go. Not. Okay. Okay, if we're going to do it with Mike, then we're shading towards Mike. We call it nam. Okay. Now, tight just means that we're going to come down here and we're going to put him right down in this situation. Maybe because we want to do a T. Maybe because, as you can see, a lot of teams are going to try to wall off our backer here when the stud is out here and the end is here. They're going to try to wall him off because they know he's got primary contain. This might be something we would get in for that purpose so that he could get a good jam here. Okay, also it may help our game here. Or maybe it's a short yardage situation where they've got a tendency to run in here, some sort of an ISO play, and we just want a better situation in here. So this is just something not only to cause confusion, but also to fortify our defense for a particular reason. If we call switch, this is something where we can switch here. It might be because we want to run a C. Okay, it might be because we want to come all the way across here with a so. It may be because now there's no way he can wall him off, okay? Because he's going to jam here, he's going to rip through this outside shoulder, he's going to jam this, he's going to be here, and there's no way they can prevent him from scraping. Bear really prevents that. And we got that from the Chicago Bears, this concept here, where you got two guys attacking the tight end. Okay, now, these are some variations, okay, that are different from our base. And we may get in these for no other reason than to cause some confusion. We may get in this because this is a great alignment here to play a cover three zone where we can drop this guy, drop here, and drop here. It may be for that reason. It may be just to confuse the blocking assignments a little bit, to change up things. It may be because they're in weak backs and we need this rover here coming off the edge here so that we can play a cover six and do that. There's a lot of reasons why we might do these. But all of these are coming from our base. I'm going to show you about 4 or 5 variations here. All of these go with Moto. Moto 1. Now, we get in a tandem, okay? Again, Moto 1. We just lined up differently. We put Mike in the middle just like we did with Diamond. We put him over here just like a 3-3-5, and now we got Moto 1. We can do me out of this, okay? We can do T out of this, okay? There's a number of different things that we can do out of this that really help us. But basically, we're just playing our defense, our base defense. We're just lining up differently and doing different things. Okay, this is a weak stack. Okay, it's kind of like a 3-3-5, but over here we're real strong. Maybe because they got strong backs over here. But again, we're playing Moto 1. We haven't changed a thing other than where these guys are lining up. That's all we've changed. His alignment, and his alignment. 3 alignments we've changed, but we're playing our base. Okay, this is just the opposite. This is a strong stack with Moto 1. Okay, split. Okay, we were over to Monterey High School today doing some things on the field, and they were talking about their split defense. We're lining up looking like a split 4 or a split 6, whatever you want to call it, but basically we're playing the same thing. Moto 1, same exact responsibilities, okay? And again, this might be different because we know we're going to get him out to adjust to an ace-back formation, and now we want to give him the split look in here, but we still want to play our base for whatever reason, okay? This is Austin, okay? And this is just a split to this side, okay, with our weak eagle over here, okay, and the Rovers walked off. But again, we're playing Moto 1. Nothing has changed. okay? Strong gaps. Now we shifted down into the gaps, okay? And again, okay, we've got a strong gap stack over here with Whip and Ted, okay? Toe over here, Mo, okay? Sometimes I get teased about being stunt crazy. This defense is not even a stunning defense. As you can see, if you haven't already realized it, we seldom ever stunt our linebackers. The stud, the whip, and the rover hardly ever come. Mostly we're doing a lot of twisting, okay, with our 5 in the trenches, our nose tackle, okay, our Ted, our Mike, and our 2 ends. We've got all sorts of twists going on. And people think they misconstrue these as being stunts. They're not really stunts. What we're aiming at is a 5-man pass rush. And the reason I like this is because if you give a 4-man pass rush, there's always that possibility, and this exists in anything, even with a 5, but more so with a 4-man pass rush, that you're going to kind of get a separation here so that the quarterback's got great view down the middle of the field. He can step up in the pocket and get a nice throw down the field. With a 5-man pass rush, we don't get that. And that's one of the things we want to go for, is this 5-man pass rush. This is also a very attacking defense. And if we were to talk about what our philosophy of defense is, and I don't even like that word because I hear coaches talk about it, your philosophy is only as good as it grows corn. But basically, our philosophy is develop a warrior attitude in our players. During the off season, we do a thing called plate punches. And I don't know, you do them or you don't do them. But it depends upon the size of the offensive lineman. He may hold a 45-pound plate. He may hold a 35, maybe even a 25. But we don't let anybody go any lower than that. And we punch it out. And they have to bring it straight back. Okay? Punch it out, straight back. We may do that 100 times in a row. We don't let them drop it down to their legs. We don't let them hold it down there. Okay? We make them hold it out here. Punch it straight out, punch it straight back. 100 times in a row. We may do 100 or 200 crunches in a row. We don't let our players bend over like this and go, ha, ha. We expect them to stand up, to look you in the eye, to be a man. We try to develop a warrior attitude. And a warrior attitude is not just physical toughness. It's also mental toughness. This is what we're trying to do with these plate punches and the things we do. Sometimes we make them run up and down the field with the 45-pound bar, and every 5 yards press it. And if you've never done that, it's really tough. But it also has a code of behavior, a warrior code of behavior. And that involves how you treat your mother and your father, how you treat your girlfriend, how you treat your teammates. Because all the time that we're doing this mental thing and this physical training that we're trying to do, we go around and we get in players' faces and we say to you, can I trust you? Can I trust you down at the goal line? Can I trust you on the 1-yard line when we've got to stop them? Are you going to be the guy that's going to take it upon yourself to stop the offense? That's what we're looking for. Players that we can trust. Real warriors in their heart. Gentlemen outside of the field that take care of their academics, that treat their teachers properly with respect and humility, that treat their girlfriend with respect and their parents with respect. That's the kind of player we're looking for. That's the kind of warrior. Obviously, we've talked about being multiple, being different. We've talked about the element of surprise. And that's what we're trying to do with all these shifting. And we have a nomenclature, and it's in the book that Coach's Choice is going to be published. But we don't, for example, call the front unless it's different than our base front, unless it's different than our base adjustment. So our huddle call will be something like Moto 1, okay, Me T1, okay, Monat 1, Tonam 1. It'll be things like that, very simple things that have really no meaning to our opponent. And we do use the armbands because in Texas, as you know, we're known for the spread offense. It's kind of, Texas football is our religion, and one of the 7 sacraments is the spread offense. And so many teams are running that, and they're running with no huddle. So we need to develop wristbands, and we need just numbers. Number 1, that's all we get into the huddle. And it's always going to be Moto 1. Okay, and then we'll go with the other numbers, but they'll all be these different stunts. And if we want to put, for example, a different front in there, like SAP, we may go SAP, Moto 1. We may go over, okay, Moto 1. But all of these things, okay, we have a very clear, concise way of communicating. And all of that is in the book that's going to be coming out, and maybe out right now, I'm not sure. But communication is very important. Language is very important. I know when I coached on the Zuni Indian Reservation, it was kind of really neat because there's only 10,000 Zunis in the world and they all speak the same language. So that when the quarterback wanted to tell a wide receiver or a running back or a lineman to do something different, he could speak to Zuni and nobody else in the world knew, including me, what he was trying to say. So language is very important. Nomenclature is very important to us, okay? But being multiple, being different is important to us, okay? We want to disguise our intentions as much as possible, to disguise our stunts as much as possible. But most of all, we want an attacking defense. And I hope when we get on the field and we go through some of these things with players from Monterey who did a great job today on the field, trying to adapt to our techniques, which were a little bit different than the things that they had done before. We're trying to get this concept of attack. We want to attack things. We want to attack the quarterback. We want to get after the quarterback. We want to make the quarterback make hurried throws. We don't want to sit back and give him time. We want to make him throw off balance. We want to sack the quarterback. We want to destroy his confidence. We want to get after the quarterback. We want to get after running backs. We want to gang tackle. We want to get after those running backs, and we want to make it an uncomfortable situation to be in this football game. I played on a team in high school, and believe it or not, we had a situation where we were playing a team, and the two running backs started arguing among themselves as to who was going to carry the ball. One guy, his number was going to be called, and he said, "No, I don't want to carry. You carry, and they just didn't argue. One time we even had to have a timeout because of that. We want to establish that. We want to get after those ball carriers. We want to hit those ball carriers. We want to attack the linemen up front. We want to confuse their blocking assignments. We want to have attacking techniques, not the type where we're stepping, okay, and reading and pursuing, but we're attacking the line of scrimmage. We're trying to establish a new line of scrimmage. We're trying to get after them. We're trying to get to the heel line so that we can cause chaos up there up front. We want to attack game plans. We know the first time we went into this double flex defense, our offensive coordinator said, "Geez, that's going to really limit my menu." He says, basically, I'm going to be able to call some zone plays and I may be able to call a counter trade, but that's about all I'm going to be able to call. And the confusion as far as who to block. It's not just, in football, it's not just a matter of knowing how to block. You also have to block the correct guy. And if you miss the correct guy and he gets through there, you can have some big plays occur. Okay, and last of all, we want to attack the ball. We want to attack, wide receivers. Okay, I'm old school. I've been coaching 42 years. Believe it or not, and my players don't believe it until I show them the picture. My first year playing high school football, we still had leather helmets. Now, we didn't have the kind that you could fold up and put in your pocket, but we did have those hard shell leather helmets. They don't believe that, but it's true, and I show them the picture, and they know that that's how old school I am. But, we want to attack wide receivers. When I played, we didn't have wide receivers. We had maybe a perimeter blocker, but we didn't have wide receivers now where you got four guys out there. And I noticed a lot of wide receivers nowadays. There's some real tough guys, especially in the NFL and Division I. But in high school football, you got some pretty guys out there, and we want to attack those guys. Those guys that are lined up, and they're all pretty out there, and fixing themselves up real nice and stuff. We want to jam those guys. We want to destroy the time in between the quarterback and the wide receiver. We want to hit those guys. We want to strip the ball. The ball is our football. We want the ball back. And basically, that's our philosophy of defense. Now, there's a couple things I'd like to put up on the board to show you why specifically I like this defense so much. Okay? First one has to do with defending the best play in football. To me, a back out, a play action pass is one of the best plays in football. Okay? I've never seen anybody defend it well. Not in the NFL. You see it thrown in the NFL. I've seen it thrown for touchdowns in Super Bowls. I've seen it thrown in high school football. I've seen it thrown in Division I. Especially if you're an 8-man front like we are, okay? We've got 8 guys here in the box, okay? Now, when we walk off our stud here, we've only got 7, okay? Now, most teams like a split 6 or a 6-2 or whatever, the 8-man front, 3-3-5, whatever it is, these players in here, okay, usually get caught in the mix because usually they're in a situation such as this. They're in this type of situation, okay, and this linebacker is caught in the mix. Now, I know people cheat their free safety over here, but there's no way he gets here. And if he's a good player and he catches this thing in space, you know, there's a great chance that he's going to get some big-time yardage. They usually get some sort of situation where they run him out or they run some sort of a high-low out here, whatever it might be, or whatever. It doesn't matter. But this play here, stopping this running back out of the backfield, is really tough for most 8-man fronts. But with the double flex, we have all gaps covered, okay? And our whip linebacker would be here. Our stud would be out here, okay? And his responsibility is bounce off, primary contain, which leads him right to that receiver. And we've been very successful covering the back out with this defense. Another way that people run this is off counter tray action. They'll run it this way, fake the counter tray back here. Okay, they may pull this guy in naked boot. They may not. But anytime we get split flow like this linebacker has to stay alone. This linebacker has to stay here. So when this back comes to this side, he's got him. This guy's got this guy. And I don't see a lot of guys throwing this screen back here. I think more people should be throwing this screen back here to this guy when they fake the counter tray. But we've got it covered. This is one of the things that I like so much about this is that we can cover back out, I think, better than any 8-man or 7-man front. Because 7-man front against this, they're going to rotate their secondary. In most instances, unless they're a quarter team or they're a cover 2 team, in most instances they can run it back to this side here because people get caught in the mix. And I put it on the internet, and Let's Talk Defense and a number of other sites, asking people, you know, how do you defend this? And I've never gotten a reply. I've heard in coaches' discussions some things that I could never make work, but this works for us, and this will work all the time. Second reason that I like this so much is most 8-man fronts have a great deal of trouble trying to stop the option. I noted when back in the 70s, I believe it was, I went to a National Football Coaches Clinic, and I remember Aaron Parsegian drawing up the split 6, 4-4 defense, which is popular even now in the state of Texas, and calling it the national defense. Because at that time, the passing game was real popular in the late 60s, early 70s, if you remember that time. Probably most young coaches don't remember that at all. But back at the time, it was real popular. Now, when the option became popular, when the University of Houston and the University of Oklahoma and the University of Texas started running a lot of option and became real popular across the country, within 3 years, hardly anybody in Division I was running the split 6 anymore. Because originally we were told that this guy had quarterback, okay, this guy had, okay, and these 2 guys had the dive. Now, anytime they were able to kiss off, okay, or fold, and they had the angles in both situations, okay, we knew, or they knew, okay, that all they had to do, okay, is give the ball. Because especially this guy would come up here. And what we created was a funnel right here, okay. I was running the split 6, the 4-4. I did it for a lot of years until that option became very popular. And what happened was, okay, we realized very quickly, okay, this guy had quarterback, okay. Now, people started bobtailing. That was the thing that people started doing with this. In other words, he came down, whichever was a fold or a kiss block, okay, they would switch assignments. Boom, right here, okay, he'd come over the top for the quarterback. People started doing that. Okay, it became very effective, especially with 7-man fronts. Hardly anybody did it out of an 8-man front at that time. We were doing it because we'd studied the 7-man fronts and we were bobtailing. But what we didn't realize was how easy it was, okay, for this guy to come down here like this, okay. He would take dive and the quarterback had free go. Okay, now obviously we had the free safety on that, but he's going to get some yardage, especially if this guy can run and who's going to play an option without a good running quarterback. The other thing was this is primary support guy. And anytime this guy came up for primary support against the option, we had this hole in here. Okay? And if you had your free safety here to help on this, you're given this. So all I had to do is pull it out and throw it up here. This is one of the things that really hurt 8-man fronts. And the reason that they've come back, the 3-3-5 became back basically as a deterrent against the spread offense. A lot of people are still running the split because so many people are running the spread offense. But, okay, as more and more people go to the option, it becomes, if people start going back to the option and start reversing cycles, which always happens in football, eventually we're going to get really good at stopping the spread offense and people are going to stop running it and they're going to go back to something else, whether it's an option offense, power offense, or whatever. We see it even in the NFL. More people are running now, I formation nowadays. Okay, against the option, we're in a good situation because we can bobtail now. Our stud has walked off out here, and he has that man-to-man, and we got this, and we don't have primary contain out here with the stud. Okay, we're in good shape here, but we can bobtail here, so that if we get this block here, we can come down here, we can scrape to the quarterback, we can scrape to the pitch. If we get this block over here, now where they're going like this, okay, we're going to hope we can get some good play out of here on the quarterback. We're going to come up and fill on the dive right here. We got this gap here. We got downhill here. We got the free safety filling alley, and we got the pitch here. So out of this defense, we can flex these guys back a little bit. A slight adjustment with this defense and still be very sound against the option. This is one of the reasons I like this because I believe the back out of the backfield in the passing game and the option game is something we all have to stop. One last thing that I'd like to go over because we do see, in fact, we do run sometimes, this double slot. Against this double slot where they're running an option in here, they're coming down the line like this. We start out with our rover and our whip here. Okay, I'm sorry, our stud here, okay? We've got our two corners here, okay? We got our free safety in the middle. And as soon as we get motion, okay, what we do is we come back over here, boom, we've got man-to-man coverage. We go to zero coverage from 1 to 0, and that allows him to come up right now on this, okay? And we can play him either here, because whip is going to move over, okay? He'll move over here, rover will come here because basically they've moved back into a two-back formation. Okay, rover will come back here, whip will come over here. We go to zero coverage. We can come down and hit the quarterback right now. We can play him on pitch. We can play our base. We can play it any way we want, but this is how we stop this. So we're sound against whatever option you want to run, including the spread offense option or the dive option or the outside veer, the inside veer, or whatever. We've already gone over this, but against the pro formation, 21 here, this is how we would adjust. We've already gone over this. And we're basically just talking about one coverage here, cover one, which is our base coverage. Okay, when we get a double tight, our boundary corner would cover the other tight end. There'd be really no change except for our quick end would have to move to a 7 technique, same as our strong end. Everything else would be the same. Field corner would go to the wide side of the field and cover that number 1 receiver. Okay, now we get into 21 personnel with twins, and like most cover 1 teams, we're a boundary over corner. So we're going to call over to this side here, okay, our field corner, And the one thing I want to emphasize here, which we didn't emphasize on the field today, is that they're going to be at different levels. Okay, we always got to make sure that we're at different levels. This guy is going to be 7 to 8 yards deep, okay, and this man right here will be 4 to 5 yards, our boundary corner, so that way we don't get picks and rubs. And also, the main threat here is what? The bubble screen. So we're in a better situation here to cover this bubble screen, and we're in a good situation to come up on that and have good coverage of that thing. Okay, other than that, there's no change in here from a pro formation. Okay, whenever, I don't know if you see this very much in your districts, your leagues, or your state, but we get a lot of this over formation, which means that we've got 3 receivers over to this side and none over here, because this guy is usually a tackle in our district. Now, if they were to put a tight end here, that would kind of change things. We'd have to do something a little bit differently. But whenever we see this, it tells us that the stud doesn't have to cover this guy, so we got an automatic go on this, okay? So this is the way we adjust to this over situation, which we see quite a bit in the state of Texas. Okay, now when we get 20 personnel, there's no tight end, stud has to walk off. We still have, okay, the same number in here. We have 7, just stud is walked off. Now, that's not set in concrete, because there's been situations where stud couldn't go out there and cover it, but we still wanted him in the game. We don't want to take him out. Okay, and maybe they were a 2-back team that ran a lot of 20 personnel, and maybe we made a switch here. All this stuff is predicated on personnel. It's never predicated on X's and O's, because X's and O's don't mean a darn thing. What counts in football is personnel matchups, and that's what we're talking about. So this would be against 20 personnel, how we would adjust cover 1. Okay, against 11 personnel, we still got a tight end in here, so stud would be here, rover would be over here. Now we're assuming that this is a wide side, and this is why we got the field corner over here. So again, we got the stagger. This would be to the short side. We got to worry about the speed option over here. He's got pitch, okay, over here. Okay, because he's under center, we still got speed option, but we think he's a good enough athlete, because we've got a longer distance to come, that he can come up and play pitch, and he would play quarterback, because if they're going to run the speed option to the side, we would block the tight end. So we think that he's a good enough athlete that can come up here and do that job for us. If not, we may have to go to a different coverage, a different scheme here. But this would be our base adjustment to an under center ace back formation, which we used to see a long time. We don't see very much of that anymore in Texas. Okay, now if we get 2 tight ends, and again, we don't see this very much, rover would come over. This is the wide side of the field, because the field corner is over here. Stud would be here on the tight end. Rover would be over here. Okay, and we got the stagger here, boundary corner into the boundary. Okay, next. Okay, we've got a 10 personnel. Okay, 1 running back, no tight end in the game. We got stud and rover. Now, again, on the sidelines, if we don't have a stud that can cover here, and we've been in that situation, we've got to get another DB in here, a nickel type of guy in here that can cover this guy and take his responsibility over for him. Now, there's been times where we made the adjustment like this. This was a real good football player, big, strong guy, and we'd substitute him for one of the ends here, or some other person in the box here, so that we had a good adjustment and we had good coverage here, and we could get the pressure we wanted. This is an ideal situation because we got whip into the boundary. Okay, we got the free safety to the wide side. Now, this is not the ideal situation because this is the wide side, but we got the running back over to this side, and we've got to get immediate support, okay? And we've got to get the whip to cover this guy. So he's got to go here, and in the past we have found if we deepen this guy up just a little bit, that he still can provide support over the top for the stud and the rover, okay? He's not going to provide, unless this is really into the boundary, he can help this guy too. He'll never help this guy in any situation as long as he's split wide out. But we've got a situation here where he can come up and help on the bounce on the counter tray. Okay, when we get a tray formation or a trips formation, in Texas we call this a tray. I don't know what you call it wherever you coach at. But again, rover goes out and adjust. Okay, we've got a good stagger here. Okay, he'll go into the boundary with the boundary corner, cover the ace back. we got him on the wide side so that he can provide help over the top with the wide receivers here. Now, let's say they put their best guy over here. We may change this entirely and put our field corner over here. Okay, we may even put him more towards the middle. Again, personnel dictates everything in football, not X's and O's. Okay, now we get in a situation with double tight. I haven't seen this in quite a few years, but we got a double tight situation. Okay, we got 12 personnel, 1 running back, okay, and 2 tight ends. Stud and Rover make the adjustment. And again, we've got a great situation here because we can get help over the top. We can get excellent help over the top with a free safety. And we still got the whip in a good position to cover the pitch if we get a speed option over here, or to take the bounce off if we got Trey. Okay, now we get it in a 10 personnel, but we got a trip situation. And again, this is the wide side of the field, so it's a good situation for us. We got our free safety to the wide side of the field, okay, and we got our whip here into the boundary with the boundary corner because that's where the ace back is aligned. So we're in a good position for the tray over here with the bounce off, speed option over here with the pitch. And those are the things we want our players talking about. We want them talking when they come up to the line of scrimmage, okay? He said he's going to be talking over here. I got pitch, you got quarterback, okay? You got to make sure that if we got a T over here, that he knows that he's got quarterback. But we're constantly talking about what we got. We're constantly talking up here. Well, again, we're playing at levels. This guy is a jam guy here. We want to make sure we've got an excellent jam on this cat right here because we know that we got a great situation for a bubble screen here, and we've got to be able to play that, and we got a great situation for a jailbreak over to this side. And we've got great support here. So we know that if we see this thing coming in, we can overplay this thing, okay? And now we're going to have not only support here, alley support here for this bubble screen or jailbreak, whatever the case may be, but we've also got help over the top if it's one of those things where we're faking the bubble and running a go. Now, we get in here. Now it's to the wide side. This trips 10 personnel to the wide side. Now we've got the same dilemma here. We've got to put, okay, our whip to the wide side over here, and we're going to try to play him in the middle. Now, obviously, if it's a passing situation, okay, it's 3rd and 15 or 3rd and 20 or something like that, we don't have to worry about that. We can cheat them over here and put them way over here. And again, it depends upon the situation, and it depends also where they're playing their receivers. A lot of teams like to run, okay, their best receiver over here and see if they can get that one-on-one coverage. And we may even put the free safety over here and our field corner over here and say, beat us over here. And we're going to try to put some sort of hellacious stunt game on here, especially with the whip here, and let, okay, Ted cover in here. And we'll talk about that when we coordinate our stunt game later in the videos. Okay, this I'll just go over briefly. I don't think anybody plays cover 1, okay, against a power I formation. This is goal line type thing. I haven't seen anybody playing this in the middle of the field except for one team probably the state of Texas for that matter. But basically we're going to go into a zero coverage, and this is going to be our adjustment. We're not going to do anything extreme. We'll just go head up here. Free safety will cover this guy like he's the number 2 receiver in the zero coverage. He's coming off the edge. Boundary corner is going to cover the tight end. Field corner over here. We're just going to play base football. Okay? Same when they go to this side. We're not going to play cover 1 against this. We're going to play a zero coverage, and we're going to send Rover off the side here. Okay? We're going to put the boundary corner here. Okay? And we'll send the stud off to this side. So we're actually getting good pressure off the edge against this, okay? And basically this is how we align against this formation. If we get double tights, again, we were not going to play, double splits. We're not going to play cover 1 against this. We're going to go to a zero coverage, and we're going to try to get some real serious pressure off this. Play the free safety here so he can support the run, and he also can cover him, okay? And basically we haven't made any new adjustments anywhere. When we get to this type of situation, a wishbone, which we don't see too much, but we see a little bit of it still because it was a big deal with the University of Texas a long time ago. There's still some old timers running a lot of this wishbone here. But basically, we're going to put our boundary corner on one of these guys to this side, stud over here, if this is the wide side of the field. okay? If we were going to play cover one, which we wouldn't do. So basically we're going to come off the edge on both sides here, put the boundary corner here, and have 9, actually 10 in the box, okay, with great pressure off the edge here. And these guys coming off the edge would be responsible for the pitch, and everybody else in here would be responsible for the quarterback and the dive, except for the boundary corner, who would have the pop pass, okay. If we were to get double split, okay, we wouldn't play cover one. We'd play zero coverage on this. Okay, we see this kind of stuff down the goal line quite a bit, but we don't see this stuff anymore in the middle of the field too much. Again, except with some old timers run this stuff. And we got the pitch here, and we've got the banjo over here, the bobtail over here. Just a couple variations of cover one that we've used. Okay, and again, most of them have to be checked off whenever there's not a tight end, okay? And basically these are things we use against a 21 personnel, whether it be pro or twin, okay? And basically we like to send the stud off the edge sometimes, and if we've got a guy that can cover this, we're going to do it. If we don't, sometimes we went to this thing we call 1W, okay, where they'll both come here. He'll attack the near shoulder, will come off the edge here, get pressure, okay, and this guy's going to cover the whip's going to cover the tight end. That's why we call it 1W. It's still cover one, okay, but that makes Ted responsible for covering the strong side halfback, okay, against a 4 wide situation, against a 20 personnel where there's no tight end. We're not going to run into this kind of stuff, okay. This is a hole coverage, which I haven't used since our first year with this defense. But if you're getting a lot of crossing, you may want to consider using this. Okay, this is a combo coverage. Okay, which a lot of people use with quarters here. Okay, and basically, okay, we're comboing 2 to 3 right here. Okay, with these two players. Okay, so that if this guy went out, he would cover it. This guy came up the seam, he would cover it. Okay, if we did it vice versa, he went up the seam, whip would cover, and he'd cover the out here. Okay, and if this guy were to stay in and block, we got a real advantage here because we've got 2 guys, whichever way he goes, we can squeeze it plus with it, help over the top. And basically, we've got the 2 to 1 coverage over here. If this guy blocks, he can go to 1. If not, okay, he's going to basically play him man-to-man. Okay, what we've got here is 21 personnel. We see our stud is down here. We're playing corner over, so this is our boundary corner. This is our field corner up here. We're not playing cover one. We've screwed our free safety down into the box. We call it a fist, so it is a form of zero coverage. And what we're looking for here is Monat against the run. Next play is against the Wishbone 31 personnel. We were looking for Tonam, and what we're checking here is pretty decent pursuit against the run. Next play is against 20 personnel. We've got our stud walked off here. Okay, our 2 corners is our boundary corner, our field corner to the wide side here. We've got a form of zero coverage again because we've got our free safety screwed down into the box. We're playing a real good running team here. We're lucky there, we twist right into the play of the trap. This next play again is against 21 personnel. We've got Monat with fist again. We've screwed our free safety down into the box, and we're looking for this linebacker to make a good fill on the isolation play towards him. This play again, we got 21 personnel. We're going Moto, which is our base, versus strong scissors play. Look at the play of the strong end and the stud up on here, up on top of the screen. So he gets off the block real well, and the stud comes off his and makes a good tackle. Okay, this next play we've got toe me. So we got a little twist down here at the bottom, little me, okay, and we get a Mike coming around the horn here. He's going to get a good rush on the quarterback, cause him to get a nice hurried throw. Makes life easier for the DB. Now we got 21 personnel again. We're looking at toe nam and good contained by the weak side end. Comes off the block real well, forces things back. We get decent pursuit and nice tackle for a loss. Next we got 21 personnel. We got toe nam. And what we're looking for here is the free safeties fill, okay, and also linebacker play. This is cover one. Next we're against 11 personnel, one tight end, one running back here. We're in a gun formation. We've got a slot back here, and what we're looking for is moto, which is our base, okay, and we're going to see some good play against cutback. Our backside linebacker played it from inside out. Okay, we got 20 personnel from a shotgun formation. We got two running backs in the backfield. We got three wideouts here. Okay, and we're going to see moto. Okay, and check out the linebacker play here. We're in a cover one. Free safety is back here in the middle. Okay, we're going to be in an over situation. We've talked about this. We've taken Mike and Ted and we're putting them on the both same sides. So this is an over. It's against 21 personnel. I just want you to get a look at some variations of our base formation. Get nice pressure on the quarterback there, get a little sack. Okay. We got Meaty against the run, okay, versus 20 personnel. Three wides, two running backs out of a shotgun formation. Okay, we should get a twist here and up in here. Okay, we're going to get a moti versus the option. 21 personnel out of the gun formation. Again, 21 personnel. We got moto versus the option. Okay, we got 20 personnel out of the gun. We got moto. Okay, you should see proper adjustment to motion, okay? And kind of watch the free safety and the linebackers on this. So our backer is running with the motion. We get good fill by the other linebacker and the free safety. Next we got 20 personnel out of the gun. We got moto versus the run. We're going to see a motion again and the adjustment to motion. Motion to ace-back formation. Made the proper adjustment in the tackle. Okay. We should see a good crush technique. Watch this nose tackle here. He's going to perform an excellent crush technique. This is what we're looking for. It's 20 personnel out of gun, and we're just playing our base defense, moto.
He's knocking into the backfield, screwing up the assignments of the linemen. It's 20 personnel, moto. Check out the free safety and the linebacker versus the sweep. Okay, we got 20 personnel, and we've got text versus the ISO. He went the wrong way, but he got back into pursuit on that. Okay, we've got 2 plays in the goal line series, and we're going to let them both run. Okay, should be 20 personnel. Okay, we got Monette versus the counter tray. Watch the linebacker playing the bounce off. Good fill by the free safety also. Okay. Playing Steeler here where we're trying to pressure the center. Playing here against the Sun Bowl. This is our first game here. Took a long time, but we eventually got them. Okay, and this is end over out of the fist down at the goal line. They put the end over to the wide side over to our right. Good example of goal line defense. I thank you very much for taking the time to look at this film. I hope that you get some ideas. Maybe you won't buy into the whole package by itself, but maybe it'll give you some ideas to make some adjustments with your own defense. I hope that it's good. If you're interested in the whole package, there's a book coming out, plus we've got 3 more videos coming out specifically dealing with the techniques, some of the other coverages, and also the last one is going to be about ace-back game planning. And I hope that this has helped you, and I wish you the best of luck next season. Thank you again.